Crossed arms are one of the most common closed postures during a conversation. Often, we perceive this gesture as a defensive reaction or even aggression, and subsequently as a pose of hiding the truth. However, did you know that this gesture can actually be a desire to return to a comfort zone? It's not about being closed off. It can be a way to create a small physical privacy for oneself. A person is literally hugging themselves with this gesture. And what if lying is also a desire to create personal space? Today, we will delve into the essence of lying and examine its signs. When we are nervous, it's not just our brain that gets anxious, but our entire body as well. Even if a person tries to hide their emotions, they will be revealed by two communication systems, verbal and non-verbal. Verbal is all our words, everything we say, the sentences we construct, and the words we use. The non-verbal system is our body, postures, movements, facial expressions, voice volume, and speed of movement in space. All of this reveals internal emotions. Lying is always a path to stress. No matter how hard it is to admit to oneself, lying is also always about deeper reasons. Behind, I just don't want to tell you this, lies. Talking about this topic makes me confront my unpleasant emotions, so I choose an option that suits both you and me. A person will never lie out of having nothing better to do. Fear of the consequences of the truth, dependence on others' opinions, a way to express oneself. That's why a person chooses to lie. This also leads to stress. Falsehood often feels like something foreign or artificial within us. It always tries to emerge through the body or words. Behind the artificial barriers of lies hides the true attitude towards what is happening, which also wants to be heard. To learn how to determine if someone is lying to you, it's necessary to monitor their stress level and attempts to hide it. If you manage to develop attentiveness in reading a person, catching them in a lie will be much easier. But I remind you that stress is not always a sign of lying. Always consider the context of the situation and be cautious. We can understand many things under the term lie. The first thing that comes to mind is that a lie is the deliberate concealment of important information, which is an act of aggression towards the person being deceived. That is, the person understands what they are doing, and it is always about the one being lied to. Lies seem to always be inherently bad and only come from bad people. In reality, demonizing deceit is not the most correct choice. Lies can be different. Indeed, a person may consciously lie to another to avoid trouble. For example, when a husband hides an affair from his wife and lies about it. Lies can also be unconscious. Such lies are driven not by rationality but by emotion. A small child might lie about a broken vase. As soon as the vase is discovered by the mother, the child will say, "It wasn't me," even though both he and the mother know who broke the vase. A person resorts to deceit because they encounter unpleasant emotions and immediately choose to avoid them. Strong emotions are difficult to express to another person, especially when the truth may have negative consequences. Lying serves as a tool for protection. The deceiver tries to protect not only themselves from the consequences of the lie, but also from the possible consequences of the bitter truth. Let's discuss how to identify such a person. Nonverbal signals. You might notice that the person starts showing signs of stress, rubbing their forehead, crossing their arms, or even clearly appearing nervous. They might start abruptly changing their body position, shifting from foot to foot, suddenly feel the urge to scratch all over. Their clothing might become uncomfortable, and they may start removing or adjusting it. For example, when your colleague talks about how she forgot to prepare the report, but her hands are shaking and her facial expressions reveal anxiety, pay attention to that. Nonverbal cues can sometimes say more than words. Studying body language is always important, not just when you want to know if someone is lying. Sometimes body language can say much more than words. Let's discuss the signs of lying based on nonverbal cues and where they manifest. Forehead areas. It's not for nothing that expression lines first appear on our foreheads. The expressions of the forehead can reveal a lot about a person's true feelings. When the eyebrows are furrowed, it indicates strong concentration and processing of information in the mind. Through the expression of the eyebrows, one can understand a person's attitude towards what they are talking about. Completely relaxed eyebrows can be a good signal. The calmer the eyebrows, the fewer cognitive processes are happening in the mind, and the less stress there is. It's important to monitor micro-expressions. An accidental raising or furrowing of the forehead area can reveal a liar. The eyebrows and forehead can tell you what is currently on a person's mind. Start from what you notice and look for other signs, which we will discuss below. Don't immediately blacklist someone as a liar. Maybe they are just overthinking on a regular basis. Avoiding eye contact. When a person lies, it is often easier for them to look away to avoid the gaze. Lying often causes people to avert their gaze to hide their true emotions. Anxiety arises from prolonged eye contact. In psychology, eyes are a symbol of control and anxiety. Thus, if a liar maintains eye contact for too long, they will start to feel stressed. Increased psychological tension can lead to the revelation of a lie. Anxiety and facial expressions can be visible through the eyes. In an anxious state, eyes tend to quickly scan the environment. A person may blink frequently, or they may start to itch. This happens due to the internal fear of being caught. For example, imagine your friend lying about how much they spent on a new game. He starts to frown and looks at the floor, avoiding a genuine answer. This can be a signal that something is wrong. The lips, or the area of the mouth muscles. An expression of anxiety in facial expressions can be the movement of the lips. A person may start to bite or lick them. Sometimes words can get mixed up. A person may start to make slips of the tongue. Saliva may begin to be produced in large quantities, or the throat may suddenly become dry. This tells us that the person has entered a zone of discomfort. Problems can also arise in the neck area. A deceiver might choke or constantly touch their neck. The truth they are hiding seems to get stuck in their throat. Figuratively speaking, of course, but they might unbutton their shirt. Disagreement or an attempt to hide uncomfortable information may be accompanied by a finger on the lips. During a conversation, a person might touch their lips or completely cover them with their hand. This does not always mean just lying. This gesture has more than one interpretation, but when combined with several other signs of lying, it can carry weight. Change in vocal range. When a person lies, their voice may sound different, most often higher or more strained. Even unconsciously, they may alter their tone to hide their lie. When a person starts lying, their voice may become higher than usual. This change occurs unconsciously, in response to the stress associated with the risk of being exposed. A high pitch is often characterized by muscle tension, particularly in the vocal cords. At the moment when a person tries to hide the truth, their body may start producing adrenaline. This leads to physical changes, including alterations in intonation and voice timbre. This can be related to nervous tension, insecurity, or the desire to make the desired impression on the listener. For example, you might notice how your friend starts speaking in a higher pitch than usual when explaining why they were late. Hand gestures are our second aid in communication. You've surely noticed people who accompany their words with hand movements. Gestures that accompany our speech play an important role in the communication process, making it easier for both the speaker and the listener. In psychology, hands are not just seen as an anatomical feature, but as a symbolic embodiment of a person's communicative potential, the ability to connect with the world and other people. When contact with the world becomes dishonest, hands can reveal this. Under stress, a person might start fidgeting with their hands, fiddling with rings, picking at hangnails, or tapping their fingers on the table. Hands may also start to sweat. These movements are a sign of nervousness and discomfort. It's likely that the person is anxious because they are lying to you. An experienced liar might be aware of such a signal of lying and start to hide their hands. For example, a person might hide their wrists in their pockets when discussing a topic about which they have lied. In this way, they close themselves off from you and break the connection. He also doesn't want you to see his sweaty palms or how he's fiddling with a piece of paper in his pocket. In contrast to restless movements, a liar's hands may suddenly freeze, becoming unnaturally still. The person might try to control their gestures to avoid giving themselves away, but this can lead to stiffness and unnatural movements. It's important to pay attention to the alignment between words and gestures. If a person is talking about something sad, but their hands are actively gesturing, it may indicate that they are not experiencing the emotions they are describing. By analyzing body language, and especially hand gestures, one can gain valuable insights into a person's internal state and recognize possible signs of lying. However, it's important to use this knowledge with caution. A person may always have sweaty hands. It's important not only how we speak, but also what we say. Oral speech or communication on social media. Verbal communication includes important components by which one can detect lies, the content of speech, its style, and linguistic features. All of this constitutes an important layer of communication. In communication, it is also possible to detect lies, even more successfully than when reading body language. Excessive details or their absence. Liars tend to make their story more realistic by adding a lot of unnecessary information. If someone starts to explain in detail how they were late for a meeting, listing all the cars on the road, think about why this is necessary. What meaning does it actually carry? This might mean that the person is trying to cover up their lie. This is the desire to enhance the credibility of a lie with facts that cannot be verified, or they simply do not make sense in the conversation. You are likely dealing with a liar with a good imagination. The opposite sign of lying, but more common, is the dry presentation of facts. An inexperienced liar will just throw a falsehood at you and hope for your belief. Such a person might invent an initial story hoping that no one will question them further. This type of liar is easily exposed with additional questions. They will start to get confused or speak contradictions. At this point, their nonverbal cues will immediately give them away. An experienced deceiver, when choosing a dry presentation of lies, will try to appear confident and persistently repeat only a couple of necessary sentences. Such a person will be more difficult to bring to a sincere confession. They might also start to stubbornly insist and convince you of their truth. But this will make their lie more obvious. Always compare the person's usual behavior with the words that have raised suspicions right now. Always maintain the context of the person you suspect of lying. Mismatch of emotions. If a person is talking about something serious or sad and at the same time looks too relaxed or even cheerful, it's worth being cautious. For example, if a friend justifies being late by saying their grandmother is ill but remains cheerful all evening. The mismatch between emotional and irrational responses is the result of a strong internal conflict. This makes it easier for a person to lie than to confront others with the truth and face it themselves. Of course, in such a situation, it's not worth getting angry at the person. Everyone experiences difficulties differently. It's worth paying attention to a person's usual reaction to troubles. Then compare it with the one that made you doubt their sincerity. In this case, the lie can be of two types: hiding true emotions for the real stated reason and hiding true reasons by stating unreal facts. Let's return to the grandmother and examine these types using this example. A person might lie because they are experiencing heavy emotions due to the grandmother's illness and are hiding their state. Such people might say that they are fine, even though in reality it's not the case. And the second type of lie, the grandmother is healthy, but the friend overslept and doesn't want to be considered irresponsible. He wants to be pitied and forgiven for his mistake. Sometimes people may express emotions opposite to those expected by others or those that are socially accepted. Dark humor is a vivid example of how the psyche copes with something very difficult to comprehend. You might be surprised, but laughter at a funeral from a close relative is not always cynicism or a desire to desecrate the deceased. The psyche simply cannot cope with such a shock and begins to produce a different reaction. The deceiver avoids answering questions. If you ask a person questions and they evade answers or start talking about something else, it may signal that they do not want to tell the truth. For example, if you ask about a specific event and the person starts talking about how their day went, it may be a sign that they are hiding something. If a conversation is likened to a straight road, then an evasive answer is a sudden turn, an attempt to veer off course just to avoid the necessity of being candid. The person likely hasn't thought through their story, or the subject of their deceit is too painful. In fear that probing questions might expose him, the liar tries to answer the part of the questions he is confident about, and he is confident in what he is not lying about. Like a frightened animal trying to hide from a hunter, the liar seeks to avoid direct confrontation with the question, because answering it would be like a shot straight to the forehead. The deceiver would be immediately exposed. However, be mindful of how you ask questions. They might simply be unclear to the interlocutor. Avoiding lies by changing the subject of the conversation. This sign resonates with the previous one. After deception, a person may start to change the topic. Pay attention to what the interlocutor begins to talk about after discussing a questionably truthful topic. For example, a friend starts asking you about how things are at work, after a conversation about the reasons for his inability to repay you a debt. Your friend realizes that his explanations sound unconvincing and fears that further discussion will only heighten your suspicions. Therefore, he tries to shift your attention to a more pleasant and safe topic. He hopes that you will forget about the debt and not delve into his excuses. Changing the subject in this context serves as a kind of smokescreen. It is intended to conceal the true motives and prevent the exposure of lies. Like an experienced poker player bluffing, the liar tries to shift attention to another card, hoping you won't notice his deceit. A deceiver inclined to manipulate others is the most dangerous type of liar. Such a person strives to make everything around them the way they want it to be. If such a person wants to deceive you, they won't plan out their story. They will start influencing you. Such a person will act verbally. What, you don't believe me? After everything I've done for you? The liar will try to make you feel guilty for not trusting them. A person can evoke this feeling in various ways, from a vivid story of a tragic incident to directly reprimanding you for expressing doubts. The main goal of the liar manipulator is for you to deceive yourself. The manipulator tries to shift the responsibility for the situation onto you, making you feel ungrateful and unfair. Like lying, manipulation is our desire to protect ourselves from the truth or its consequences. Manipulation is an influence on the emotional sphere of the person being lied to. Such a behavior pattern can form as early as childhood. A vivid example can be a child who throws tantrums to beg for a sweet from their parents. If the sweet is received after the tears, the mechanism is reinforced. Always stay with your emotions and do not let the deceiver get into your soul. Now you know what to pay attention to in order to detect lies. However, remember that it is always worth considering the individual characteristics of each person. Do not rush to conclusions, but be attentive to signals that may alert you. And remember, trust is the foundation of any relationship. Do not judge a person as a liar if only one sign matches those we discussed today. Maintain critical thinking, stay with us, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. Good luck and see you soon.